From beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, it is a Neglected News Report. I'm your co-host, Scott Mitchell, along with my brother, Kevin.
How y'all doing today?
Okay, I gotta do something about that sound file. Actually, I think it's the hard drive I have it on. Because there are other songs that do that too, for some reason. Anyway, well, it is a beautiful day in the neighborhood here. It's, really, spring is here in the valley. It's been in the low to mid and sometimes upper 70s, sometimes 80.
Oh, and the pollen is awful. I went hiking this morning up the mountain that I like to hike, and boy, my sinus is going nuts.
Well, mine haven't been much better lately. Everyone at work has been really, people that don't even normally have problems with it have been having problems with it lately. And I don't know what up with that, but they've been having problems with it. But it's nice. It's, you can tell that it's spring because my yard is full of weeds. And that's after the rain from the Super Bowl weekend and that week and the heat and the sun. And I got some guys coming over in a few hours to spray it, so that'll be gone.
Well, we had some really breaking news this week. 50 Shades of Grey debuted.
I'll tell you what, I'm giddy with excitement about that.
What's so funny, and this is a chick movie. It's chick porn is what it is. And they're all coming out of the woodwork, whether it's, the lady across the street or Madonna saying it's just not sexy enough. Well, if you want to watch porn, there's plenty of it on the internet. What do you, I guess the one of the biggest complaints I heard is that when I guess she opened up her closet, this is a chick. I guess she opened up her closet and there was full of sex toys, and apparently there weren't good enough sex toys for some of the women.
I had a singles pastor at church once say that romance novels are pornography for women.
Well, this is more than romance. This is this is S&M. This is bondage.
This is where it's gotten.
Oh,
it's gone beyond that. It's gone beyond that.
Well, I remember when growing up, our mothers had Tupperware parties. Well, you know what women have these days? Sex toy parties. Trust me, I know this. Don't ask me how I know this, but they do. They get together and they shop for vibrators, dildos, whatever. Sorry to use that word, but it's not even. It's come out of the closet so much that they don't even know enough to be ashamed. To keep that to themselves. They get together and they compare their sex toys. I can't.
How about self-operated manual pleasure devices?
I find it odd. Scott, what would you do if one of your buddies sat down next to you and discussed his morning masturbation? I mean, what would you do? You would look at him and say, shut up.
I would say, I'm glad there's a partition between your desk and mine.
Yeah, you'd say, shut up. But why is it that women talk about that stuff? It's so personal and so, you should be ashamed of yourself.
Well, to a large degree, it's another example, in my opinion, of women becoming what for decades and centuries they criticize men for being. Well,
they'd say to you that
they've doubled down on
that they've just found their sexuality.
Yeah,
are you trying to say that thousands and thousands of years of history, you're trying to tell me Cleopatra didn't have a good sex life? You're trying to tell me that what's her name of Russia, Catherine the Great? There's some stories about her. Trust me. Yeah. No, this idea that somehow women's sexuality has been stifled. Oh, nonsense. They just don't paste it all over the place.
Yeah, I know. It's just. It's like Helen Reddy said, I am woman, hear me scream. I mean, roar. That's all, that whole feminist crap. I think the contribution to all this Helen Reddy song, I Am Woman had is underestimated quite to a large degree. Because you know why? Here's why. That I am woman, hear me roar, women latch on to phrases.
Well, I've learned a lot since my divorce. First of all, what goes through the average woman's mind, what women's conversation is all about, is typically sex. And I've been accused of being a prude, which I'm not. Trust me, I'm no prude. Mm-mm. It just bores me.
Yep.
Sorry, when you're sitting around talking like a bunch of giddy 14-year-old girls talking about their first kiss, and comparing your sex life like it just bores me.
Well, to me, it bores me as much as guys when they sit around talking about the things they do. I mean, the guys at work would say, "Hey man, let's go to the strip club." I said, "What, you want to come with us?" And I go, "No." Well, why? It's boring.
And that's another thing.
Not that I haven't been to one, I have. But
that's another one of my bugaboos. You hear from the feminists that going into topless bars is treating women as objects, and that you're that you're using them and so forth. Who's using whom? Okay,
exactly.
Who's being used here? Okay, the woman who's walking around, prancing around with her top off, making hundreds of dollars a night, or the dumb guy who thinks he's got some romantic chance with this little prostitute.
And believe me, they make a lot of money.
Lots and lots of money.
I know one. I know a woman who used to do it for a living, and she made buku bucks. So
I'm going to really anger a lot of people out there right now, but we live in an era, woman as whore. Sorry. I mean, you know that you see these little girls wearing these T-shirts talking about being it's porn stars and stuff. Porn. When I was a kid growing up, you had to go to the seedy part of town to see porn. Now it's like it's in your face. These girls want to become porn stars, and
well, what I posted this week on Facebook was someone posted a picture. This is post Grammys. They posted a picture of Beck on top, who won record of the year, album of the year actually, and underneath it was Beyonce, and the whole thing about Kanye West. He once again, just like he did a few years ago with Taylor Swift, saying Beyonce got robbed, Beck shouldn't have won it, basically. Not in so many words, but what I put up there, if I can find it here, it basically says that Beck wrote, arranged, produced, and played all the instruments on all 13 songs on his album, and play 16 instruments on his own. Beyonce had to have 16 something like 16 writers to write 16 songs on her album, and that's it. And he goes, "There's the talent you're talking about, Conway." And I here it is. Here we go. This is where I wrote. It says Beck wrote, produced, arranged all 13 songs on his last album, plays 16 instruments, is asked by Kanye to give his award to Beyonce. And it shows a picture of Beyonce below it. Beyonce plays 0 instruments, needed 16 songwriters, producers, and composers on her last album. Yeah, Conway, I see your point about artistry. And my comment was this. And people wonder why I despise Beyonce and her ilk. They are nothing but a bunch of no talents who got by selling sex, misogyny, and lies. But then again, there are those who buy into it. Kudos to Beck. You deserve the Grammy, man.
But does Beck have a second person living inside of him like Beyonce? What's her pseudo?
Sasha Fierce.
Sasha Fierce. Does Beck claim to have another entity living inside of him? But
I know one thing about Beck. He's got 2 turntables and a microphone. But
it gets back to my point. We're living in this era where the ancient goddesses are coming back, and they're all sex. They're basically all sexual.
Look at Katy Perry at the Super Bowl halftime show.
Ishtar, the fertility goddess. This is where all this crap is coming from. Madonna, Katy Perry, Beyonce. What's that other? Nicki Minaj. What a creep she is.
She's just creepy to look at.
I mean, this is what this is all. This is this girl power you're hearing about. This girl power. It's basically, sluttiness is all it is. It's sexuality, and it's using sexuality as
Lady Gaga
as power, and it's ridiculous. We used to call women like that sluts, but now we call them whatever, entertainers.
We call them stars.
And if you didn't have the visual that came with the music, there would be nothing to listen to. No. Without the visual, and a lot of it, by the way, is hidden, is occult symbolism. If I can go there. I could spend a whole show on that.
Going back to Beck, you don't need to have a video to enjoy his music. It's just interesting music to listen to.
No, I'm
talented.
I mean, there's songs that I've been listening to for years that I've never seen a video to because I don't need to.
Right.
because it's great music.
Yeah.
It stands on its own.
I mean, and in the case of Beyonce, have you ever heard of a more arrhythmical drivel than some of her songs? Where's the rhythm in it? There is no rhythm to it.
Boy, we should do a show on this, Scott, because I've got a lot of material with the hidden, all the hidden occultish stuff in it. I mean, call me nuts, call me crazy, but it's right there. I can show it to you.
To quote a band,
you know what that is,
that actually
Scott?
has talent. Yeah, it's the I Horse, right?
No, that's
you told me.
666.
Oh yeah.
You see it all the time. You see a Beyonce flashing that all the time. 666. You see it all the time. Check it out.
Okay, now I forgot what I was going to say. I was going to quote a song title by Tesla that was pertinent, but anyway. By the way, Tesla, a band that has buku talent, who is still touring after almost 40 years.
Almost as much talent as the man himself.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's one of my favorite quotes. Someone came up to Albert Einstein and said,
call it what you want. Call it what you will is the song by them.
Someone approached Albert Einstein once and said, are you the smartest in the world? And Einstein said something like, after Tesla, I am.
Yeah. And he got the wrong. He's gotten some what's the word I'm looking for?
Bad press?
No. Lately he's gotten some reaffirmation in recent years. So the band Tesla had a lot to do with it. Actually,
Edison did his best to destroy him.
Yeah, the band Tesla actually lobbied to get him the recognition he deserved.
He died in. As a pauper, basically. Yeah. Homeless and just...
He worked for George Westinghouse. He worked originally for Edison, but then he went to work for Westinghouse.
Excuse me. Well, let's get on to something more serious than 50 Shades of Grey and all the harlots out there. While all this talk has been going on about mundane, stupid things, Obama's is getting ready to pass the net neutrality plan. Well, of course, he's bypassing Congress to do this.
Of course.
And, anyway, the FCC commissioner is a man named Ajit Pai. He was a Republican. He was put in the position by Obama, but he's actually a Republican, and he's putting out this warning right now about the 332-page plan to regulate the internet. He said that the net neutrality plan could in fact open the door to new fees and taxes as well as government control over the prices that internet providers charge to customers. And these claims have also been echoed from Republicans on Capitol Hill who are scrambling to thwart the new regulation. But Pai says it's a done deal. He said that he's going to vote against it, but it's going to be a 3-2 vote to pass this thing. And what you're going to see, I'm not going to read everything, into it, but he said, I believe the public has a right to know what its government is doing, particularly when it comes to something as important as internet regulation. And I have studied the 332-page plan in detail, and it is worse than I even imagined. He goes on to say, he said that internet speeds are going to slow down. He says there's going to be hidden taxes, not hidden. He says they're going to be basically what you're going to see is a government. They call it net neutrality. And always remember something about tyrannical governments, totalitarian governments. They play with language. When you hear something like this, net neutrality coming from a government such as ours, what they're really telling you is just the opposite.
And the key to it all was last week. The end of last week was when the FCC commissioner, what's his name again? I forgot his name.
Pai?
No, not Pai.
Wheeler.
He decided that they're going to treat ISPs as what they call them, level 2 utilities instead of a luxury. So when they do that, then they have the power to regulate them. Once they do that, it's like the difference between your electric company, it's like the difference between a broadcast network or radio station and Sirius XM. Sirius XM it's considered a luxury as opposed to a public utility or public service, so they can charge whatever they want. They're not regulated. And they can say what they want on the air and everything. It's the same difference.
Here's my prediction. Again, this has nothing to do with net neutrality. Zero. Here's my prediction. People like Scott and I, and you name it, thousands of others that
Glenn Beck,
that are on the internet that basically the government doesn't like. They're going to be silenced.
Glenn Beck, his whole network will be shut down.
We're going to live in a time, and I can't tell you if it's going to be in a year, 2 years, 10 years, or whatever. We're going to live in a time when to put out any information contrary to the government's party line, and I use that term party quite specifically, is going to have to be clandestinely done by print. You're going to see people passing out print information because you're not going to be able to get it on the internet. You see China. I mean, the minute you say anything, contrary to the government party line over there, see how long you have access to the internet, and see how long you stay alive. Actually,
yep.
But bear something in mind. Again, remember what I did in the military. I was in military intelligence. I worked during the Cold War. Basically fought communism. And I learned to really despise communism. But remember something about them. They used language, and George Orwell was the first one to actually put it to pen to paper describing it. But they used words to control your mind. Mm-hmm. So people think, oh, net neutrality. Well, that sounds good. Well, no, it doesn't mean that at all. In the Soviet Union, you had people would call like something the people's this or the people's that or the Democrat this, the Democratic People's Republic of blah, blah, blah. And when in fact, it was all a bunch of BS. It was just the opposite. And that's what they do. And this is the first, pay attention to language. Pay attention to it, because when the real meaning of something is actually different than the word to use to describe it, you better start being suspicious of the people putting it out.
It's like some of these think tanks. Like what's John Podesta's group? His think tank.
Oh,
you got to be aware when you hear those too. I mean,
well, what's the weirdo David Brock,
right?
What's his organization?
I'm not sure.
It's basically supposed to be a media watchdog. When he's
right.
Who's funding him?
MoveOn.org was.
Well, who's funding Brock's organization?
George Soros.
Dun 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 dun. Yep. George Soros is bankrolling. It's not real clear politics. That's the other side. But it's
Center for the American Progress is.
Oh well, progress. When you start using that word. But the other one is Media Matters. There it is. That's David Brock and George Soros. Mm-hmm. Media. And they disguise themselves as this bipartisan think tank where they just they take what's out in the media and they either prove or disprove, whatever premise being made. But really what it is, it's a far left wing advocacy.
Yeah,
is what it is. And David Brock is a weirdo.
Yeah, pretty much.
I've read many articles that say he's off his rocker.
He claims to have been a Republican or conservative one time.
Yeah, so he says, but
Yeah.
And then we all know who George Soros is. He's the Boris and Natasha from Bullwinkle.
No, he is the Emperor from Star Wars.
Yeah. So
I was looking for the music too.
So I'm not going to go way into this net neutrality, but it's 332 pages if you want to read it. I guess it's out there for you to read. And he says, Pi says that the claim that Obama says that the internet this act does not include rate regulations is flat out false. He says, indeed, the only limit on the FCC's discretion to regulate rates is its own determination of whether rates are just and reasonable, which isn't much of a restriction at all.
And the fact is that since it's done by executive order, no one in Congress gets to read it, so therefore we don't know what's in it.
So they're putting the clamps on the internet. Oh, and wait till you find out about real IDs. That's coming. That was implemented by George Bush in 2005. It's coming to a state near you where you're not going to be able to get on a plane. You're not going to be able to travel without a federal government approved identification card. Not going to be able to drive. They're going to be all right now. Driver's licenses are all state centric. They're each state has different standards and so forth and so on. They're going to make it so every state has to comply. And I think right now 40 states are moving in that direction, and by the end of this year. And one of the states, Arizona, isn't. And we just
who are the others that are?
New York is another one.
That isn't?
Idaho, yeah, New York.
Really?
Arizona just really ticks off Obama.
Well, let's hope that Governor Ducey decides to continue the trend.
Well, the fact that we can carry guns obviously ticks off Obama.
Yeah.
So what do you got for us, Scott? You got anything you want to talk about?
Crap! Now I forgot what it was. Yeah, I want to kind of touch on this whole thing with Scott Walker about how the left is going off on him. I'm not sure the right. I'm sure that Karl Rove has something to say about it. Scott Walker never got his degree. Big freaking deal. I think he's done pretty well.
Well, he's probably getting a two-pronged attack. One's from the Democrats, and the other was from your progressive
Republican Party elite.
The people that want Jeb Bush in there, which is Karl Rove, and basically when you're flying over the target, you get the most flack. So Walker made this incredible speech a few weeks ago, and all of a sudden he's skyrocketed in the polls. Basically, he didn't say anything that he hasn't been saying for years. It's just that a bunch of people heard it.
Can you name the last president that didn't have a college degree?
Let me think about that. Probably Truman.
Yep. And even for a Democrat, he turned out to be a pretty darn good president. He wasn't bad. He didn't suck. And who says you have to have a college degree? How does that qualify you? That's the mindset we have in this country.
Well,
everyone's got to have a college degree.
Well, the next bubble to burst, don't you?
Student loans.
Student loans, man. Yeah. Oh boy, wait till that happens. We've sold our kids on this notion that in order to get anywhere in this world, you got to have a college degree. Well, how many people with college degrees are living in their mom's basement right now, trying to pay off 6-figure loans that they took out for a worthless degree, maybe sociology or psychology or something you can't even use?
Well, think about this. When it was the housing bubble, how was it sold? It was sold as it's the American dream to own your own home.
Yeah, and
what is college loans? School loans.
Same thing.
It's the American dream to get a college degree.
They created a big bubble. But what they did with the housing bubble was they made it by law. If you were a lender and you weren't making loans to people who obviously didn't qualify, you could be sent to jail.
Yep.
And I was a mortgage.
Started with the Community Reinvestment Act.
I was a mortgage broker in the 1990s. My mom and I both. And when they came in and audited you, basically HUD or the state banking department, what they did is they wanted to see your turned down loans. They wanted to look at them to why they were turned down, because they wanted to get you that in this you were in this discriminatory mode. There's reasons why there are guidelines to lending, because statistically, bad risks typically default on loans. And it's just a measure of risk is all it is.
How do they justify having all these regulations and guidelines? For fairness. That's how they justify it.
Fair housing laws.
Once again,
fairness.
What they say, take it, turn around 180 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, folks, we're already there right now. We're 1984. What were the two nations, the two that were at war constantly?
In the book or the actual 19? I don't remember now the names.
Oceania and I forgot the other one. But they were constantly in a state of war. Where are we at right now? Constantly in a state of war. And we've got this big this big bad boogeyman called terrorism that is used to scare the wits out of people.
It's used to justify everything.
Used
nowadays.
to justify us giving up our liberties. And this net neutrality is more of the same. Net neutrality, all these this real ID that I was just talking about just now, it's used under the guise of protecting us from terrorists because terrorists can't get such IDs and so forth and so on. So it's the same old crap. Here, we're going to scare you, and then we're going to come in. It's Hegelian dialectic. They create the problem. They come in with the solution.
To look like the hero.
And to look like the hero. And you know what the solution is? It's enslaving you.
Yep.
Right now they're building a cyber prison. Well, I don't know if it's a cyber prison, but it's a total control grid. There's going to be a day. Well, now they're talking about driverless cars.
I know.
Now that sounds cool, right? No. What is a driverless car?
I think a flying car is cooler.
Take away from you. Takes away your ability to go where you want to go, how you want to go, what time you want to go. What when you start getting the driverless cars, who's going to be controlling them?
Exactly.
It's like mass transit. You go where and when they want you to go.
And real quick, just to backtrack just a little bit, when we're talking about how they use the American dream as an excuse for home loans and student loans. Realize this, folks. The American dream is none of that. It is not owning a home. It is not going to school. It is not owning this, that, or the other. You know what it is? It's the opportunity to do those things, to have to make a success of yourself. It's the opportunity to own a home if you so desire. It is the opportunity to go to college if you desire through your own means. It's to set up the opportunity to allow you to do these things. That's what the American dream is.
And that's several $1 trillion bubble ready to burst.
It's known as rugged individualism.
How are these students going to pay back their debt when they don't have jobs?
Nope.
93 million people are out of the workforce. I'm hammering that number home because it's important. That's almost 1 out of 3. Yet they constantly tell us that unemployment is under 6%. Baloney.
1 out of 3 in the population at large, but it's a higher number as a portion of the workforce.
Well, they say that
or people of working age,
that the true unemployment rate for 18 to 34-year-olds, I think that's the number they use, is in the 20s.
That's surprising.
The real unemployment. So you've got all these trillions of dollars out there, student loans.
You know why?
And hold on, this ought to make everybody mad, but for some reason it doesn't. So we don't have the jobs that we need, but we're told that's why we're allowing illegal immigrants in, because they're gonna help with the economy.
Yeah.
How can that be so? How does that work?
Do you know why the percentage is almost 20% between amongst 18 to 34-year-olds? Because they've got useless degrees.
That's part of it too. But the government. And that also tells you the government made lending easy for student loans. They made just like they did with the housing back in the 80s. They started, and so everybody was given a loan, so now they just don't have the means to pay it back.
Let's face it. If you have a degree in transsexual Nazi midgets who are still afraid of the bike bar, you deserve not to have a job.
Oh, and how about women's studies? It's basically a degree in hating the patriarchy, hating everything. Now, somewhere somebody's sitting there getting a real belly laugh, going, "Man, we are doing such a good job of destroying this country. I didn't think it'd be this easy." That's what they're doing. We got these stupid, worthless degrees that just pits one American against the other.
It's not too different from how Satan works, because Satan, most of what happens bad in your life is not Satan, or anyone's life or in the world is not Satan. I mean, it's us. But Satan plants the ideas, the seeds.
Yeah, and he's got the grand design.
And it's the same thing with everything else. I mean, these were not... It's not saying going out there and saying, yeah, I'm going to set up a women's studies group at Berkeley or Stanford or whatever. No. He puts the ideas in people's faces or heads.
And what they study there is so evil. It's just... What was her name? Catherine McKinnon? What was her name? She was a professor at the University of Michigan, I believe. Feminist studies. And she was the one who put the idea out there that sex within a marriage is basically rape.
Rape.
Everything was rape, except between a woman and a woman and a man and a man.
Well, you heard what they're doing at Bryn Mawr University?
Oh, yeah.
Bryn Mawr is traditionally an all-female college, university, folks, but they're on the East Coast, right?
Yes.
But what they want to do now is they want to expand the definition to people who are transgendered, but only those they'll accept men that identify as women, but not women who identify as men.
This is certifiable insanity.
It really is. It's just crazy.
I guess Bruce Jenner can go get a degree there, huh?
Who knows with him? He's got other troubles
what's
now.
What's with that? Are they just taking away every American icon from us? Are they just destroying everything, or what? What's up?
We still got Clint Eastwood.
I hope
he's not going to live much longer.
How about the little African American radical Girl Scouts? You heard about that?
Oh my God, yes.
Sitting there,
they're sitting there. They got the signs of "Don't shoot" or "I can't breathe." They got the "Don't shoot" and "I can't breathe" signs up saying that,
which are total false. That's total.
It's built upon the "I can't breathe" that was legitimate. It was on tape, but the "Don't shoot" thing never happened. But they're sitting there and they're doing the whole thing that Black Lives Matter, white cops are doing. They're killing black. Oh,
that's total brainwashing. Little girls like that don't even know what's going on.
I mean, we're talking 10 and 12-year-olds or less, or younger. I don't know what they start out as.
They're being used as political pawns, and it's disgusting. What'd you make of Chris Cuomo?
Chris Cuomo? Chris Cuomo was interviewing, what was his name again? The judge?
I got it right here. Alabama Judge Roy Moore.
And if I'm not mistaken, he was the guy who fought.
He won the 10 Commandments.
Yeah, the 10 Commandments speech. He wanted, case. He wanted to keep the 10 Commandments on the wall of his courthouse, and there were groups that were trying to have it removed, and he won that case. He was on, was it CNN or MSNBC? Okay.
CNN.
He was debating Chris Cuomo or being interviewed by him.
Well, same thing.
Yeah,
it was an interview, but it was a hostile one.
Yeah, and it's like, Fox News doesn't have.
If only he could have gotten softball questions like
Fox
Obama
News,
gets.
Fox News has nothing but opinion. Yeah, okay. Yeah, CNN. Okay, anyway, I was being sarcastic there, folks. Anyway, Chris Cuomo said to him. Now, it's the way he phrased the question. How did he say it now?
About.
They were debating where rights are derived from.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, it's in the.
And he says
it's in the Declaration of Independence.
And he said something to the effect of, "Judge, you and I both know that rights don't come from God."
I think Thomas Jefferson said that. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men were created equally endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, among those life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Those are things that can't be. There's a difference between rights and laws. Rights are something that are God-given.
It's even more so. I mean, there's also it mentions. Let me find it here. Okay. It says, when in the course of human events, this is the Declaration of Independence, it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bonds which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. A decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Then we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights,
which means can't be taken away,
that among them are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But not only, and then it goes on to say that is the job of government to what? Secure these rights for the people, not give them welfare, not give them food stamps, not give them whatever.
Go ahead.
What I'm saying is, it first says, and just as the Constitution is a codification of what is put forth in the Declaration of Independence, the paragraph 1 leads into paragraph 2 of the Declaration of Independence. One leads to the other, just like the Declaration of Independence leads to the Constitution, where it mentions the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. And then it goes on to say that we hold these truths to be self-evident, that they're given by God.
So what Kumo was doing was he was conflating laws with rights.
Yeah.
He was confusing the two, and he was actually rude to Judge Moore, and he says, "You know as well as I do that man gives rights to man."
Yeah.
And he says, "No, you're wrong. We make laws. Yes, those are man's laws, but rights are given."
And the laws,
and it's stated right there by Thomas Jefferson.
It says basically you can conclude out of there that laws are passed to preserve the rights that are given to us by God. That's why governments exist.
Supposed to be.
That's why governments exist.
But you know what? Also, you know what Jefferson also said? He said that there'll be times when it'll be necessary for a revolution. That when you start seeing tyrannical governments come about, he said it'll be necessary. And
what did he say? He put it very well. The tree of victory, from time to time, the tree of victory has to be watered with the blood of tyrants.
Yes,
if I'm not mistaken.
And what does Obama find totally bothersome about our Bill of Rights? They're negative. They're telling government what it can't do. And he said it. And this isn't me speaking. He said as much.
He said it himself.
He says that they should be positive. What government can do for you. Government doesn't do anything for you. It does it to you.
It protects. It's meant, as it says in the Declaration of Independence, to protect your rights so that you can do things for yourself.
So if a man as learned as Kumu doesn't,
you'll get it right.
I'm just doing Jesse Jackson says that, so I can.
I didn't know that.
I call him Kumo. It's Cuomo. I understand. If somebody, he's probably got an Ivy League degree. I guarantee it. I don't know which school he went to.
Considering who his dad was.
But if he can't even grasp that, how can the sheep out there? And I hate to deride some of you, but you don't. I bet you couldn't even tell me what year that when the Revolutionary War started.
It's like he didn't even respect.
Oh, he totally. It was totally in your face.
It was like that the new head of the VA when he was when he was arguing with that one congressman this week. I forgot, he was on Fox this morning. I can't remember the guy's name. He says to the congressman, "Sir, what have you ever done?" In other words, basically, what have you ever done to be able to talk to me like this? And he came back to say, well, I served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I think he said, I've got a Purple Heart. This guy's got all the experience that the head of the VA doesn't have,
But that
doesn't respect it, though.
But that's the same as Lois Lerner, and that idiot that took over for her. What's his name?
Koskinen?
Yeah.
No, he was her boss. He's the head of the IRS. She was the head of a department in the IRS.
Well, anyway, but that's how did you see how they just treat anybody who questions their authority?
And then Koskinen, and now the IRS is saying that any assistance you might need filing your taxes this year, you may not be able to get it, or if you do, it'll be quite delayed by a large margin because we don't have the personnel to help you this year. Yeah, okay. I thought that Obamacare was supposed to supply more IRS agents to make sure everyone's complying with Obamacare. Yeah,
we're starting to wade into really dangerous times, people. And I'm gonna go into something right now that it's probably gonna require more time, but I want to hit it right now. There's this theory that's been bantied about for for years now. It's called the Strauss-Howe Generational Theory, and they wrote a book in the 1970s, I believe, called Generations, which my brother just gave me the book. I didn't realize he had it. And
I'd forgotten about it.
They laid the groundwork for the theory in their 1991 book, Generations. I'm sorry, which retells the history of America as a series of generational biographies going back to 1584. The theory was developed to describe the history of the United States, including the 13 colonies and their British antecedents, and this is where the most detailed research has been done. However, the authors have also examined generational trends elsewhere in the world and identified similar cycles in several developed countries. The books are bestsellers, blah, 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 blah. And academic response has been mixed, but what it does is it says that our country basically works in like 70 to 80 something year cycles. And there's, while writing Generations, Strauss and House discovered a pattern in the historical generations they examined, which revolved around generational events, which they called turnings. The generations, and in greater detail, the fourth turning, they identified the four-stage cycles of social and mood eras. Okay, and I'm going to explain to you what these subsets of these turnings are. The first is called a high. According to the authors, this is a post-crisis era when institutions are strong and individualism is weak. Society is confident about where it wants to go collectively, though those outside the majoritarian center often feel stifled by the conformity. According to the authors, America's most recent first turning was the post-World War II America. High beginning in 1946, right after the war, and ending with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy on November 22nd, 1963. And at the end of that leads into the second part of the turning, and basically these are 20 to 22 year periods that each one lasts. According to the theory, the second turning is an awakening. This is an era, when institutions are attacked in the name of personal and spiritual autonomy. Just when society is reaching its high tide of public progress, people suddenly tire of social discipline and want to recapture a sense of personal authenticity. Young activists look back at the previous high as an era of cultural and spiritual poverty. What's that remind you of? The 1960s, because that's what it was. Mm-hmm. That was epitomized what would be called an awakening. Mm-hmm. Okay, the third part of this
they say they said the last awakening was during the ended when Reagan got elected for his second term, mid 80s.
So the next one that follows after the awakening is called the unraveling. The mood of this era is in many ways the opposite of a high. Institutions are weak and distrusted because they become distrusted because of the awakening, like the 60s. The 60s radicals basically, sour everybody on. Anyway, institutions are weak and distrusted while individualism is strong and flourishing. Highs come after crisis, when society wants to coalesce and build. Unravelings come after awakenings, when society wants to atomize and enjoy. They declare that America's most recent unraveling was the long boom in culture war, beginning in the mid-1980s and ending in the 2000s. Okay.
Late 2000s.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. Which leads to the last one, which is crisis. According to the authors, the fourth turning is a crisis. This is an era in which institutional life is destroyed and rebuilt in response to a perceived threat to the nation's survival. Read 9/11 on that one. Civic authority revives, culture expression redirects towards community purpose, and people begin to locate themselves as members of a larger group. America's most recent completed fourth turning began with the stock market crash of 1929 and climaxed with the end of World War II. And the generation that was, at their height at that time during World War, the market crash of 29 and World War II was called the GI generation, those born between 1901 and 1924. Well, according to the authors, the millennial generation of today are similar to those, the GI generation of that era. And the millennials were born from 1982 to 2004. So what they're saying is right now we just left the unraveling, and we're in the crisis mode right now. And I'm going to tell you what the crisis, So what happened in the last crisis? World War II.
Yep.
And they can go back, and these are like 80-year cycles before World War II. World War I was not one of them, by the way, because World War I was just the beginning of World War II. Yeah. So it was not it wasn't a turning. Civil War was the one prior to that. Okay, lots of death, lots of destruction, and basically a vamping of the system, I guess, right after. And prior to that was a revolution, Revolutionary War. So that leads me to this article that this could take. I could talk about this for a long time, but this was in Zero Hedge, and it's a 4-part article, and it's really meaty and long. And this is just part 4. I haven't even read 1, 2, and 3 yet, but it's called "The Fourth Turning: The Shadow of Crisis Is Not Past." It goes into Strauss-Howe's, theory of the turnings and so forth. This is a quote by Strauss-Howe regarding the fourth turning. The risk of catastrophe will be very high. The nation could erupt into insurrection or civil violence, crack up geographically, or succumb to authoritarian rule. If there is a war, it is likely to be one of maximum risk and effort. In other words, a total war. Every fourth turning has registered an upward ratchet in the technology of destruction and in mankind's willingness to use it. And that's right out of the book about the fourth turning. So what we have right now, it's setting the stage right now for the fourth turning. We're in the Middle East. We're imperialistic as all hell. Excuse my language. The United States right now. We're going into countries where Libya, Iraq. We're trying to get into Syria. We're trying to go into Ukraine. We're just rattling our sabers right now. We're getting ready for it. And this author says the most disconcerting aspect of fourth turnings is they have always climaxed with total destructive all-out war. Not wars to enrich arms dealers like Iraq, Afghanistan, and Syria, but incomprehensibly violent, brutal wars of annihilation. There are clear winners and losers at the conclusion of fourth turning wars. Leaders mobilize all forces, refuse to compromise, define their enemies in moral terms, demand sacrifice on the battlefield and home front, build the most destructive weapons imaginable, and employ those weapons to obtain victory at any cost. It may seem inconceivable that war on such a scale will happen within the next 10 years, but it was equally inconceivable in 1936 that 65 million people would die in the next 10 years during World War II. We valued all the wrong things and made all the wrong choices leading up to this crisis and during the early stages of this crisis. The accumulation of unmet obligations, unpaid bills, unkept promises, and unresolved issues will provide the fuel for an upheaval that will shake our society to its core and transform the country's direction for the next 60 years. The outcome of the conflict could be tragedy or triumph. Our choices will make a difference. So, what happened the fourth turning of the last cycle was the beginning of it was the stock market crash in 1929. What are we looking at right now, Scott?
Stock market crash.
We're looking at the same
world monetary collapse too.
And everyone says to me, "Well, look at the stock market." Yeah, look at the stock market in 29 before it crashed. It had a huge upsurge,
and for a different reason. Buying on the margin.
Oh, yeah.
Buying on credit.
Yeah, which we're sort of doing that again now.
Yeah.
But what happened? What did it lead to? It led to
World War II.
And we're going to see it on such a more massive scale because the debt and the criminality behind so much of the banking and the stock trading and it's just so much deeper now. It's just so much larger. It's going to be so that therefore, excuse me. The war is just going to be horrendous. Well, I mean, what do we?
Not to mention the fact that we've, since World War II, have developed so many more different, interesting, and nasty ways of killing people, too.
Yeah, we didn't have the bomb back then, remember?
Mm-hmm. Not to mention conventional weapons.
Yeah, I'm convinced. I'm one of those people that are convinced that we've got stuff that we were not even aware of.
Alien technology.
Well, whatever. I think it's. Well, I won't go into that. But
I'm joking.
no, I'm talking about where we get some of our knowledge. But so we're going right now. We're setting the stage to like a World War II on steroids. Mm-hmm. We're just in your face right now. What are we doing to Putin? We're
pissing him off is what we're doing.
Yeah, I'm not saying, look, don't piss Putin off because he's a good guy. I'm saying don't piss him off because he's not one of those guys. He's not a mealy mouthed little fool like Obama is. And I could see the first bomb dropped on the United States, Obama would surrender. That's not Putin. Putin's all in, man. He's got his stacks out there and he is all in. Don't ever underestimate him. He's ex-KGB. What did he call some of our leaders a few months back? Psychopaths, I think he referred to them as.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly what it was.
And that's something coming from a KGB guy.
He's got some cojones.
So this goes on. There will be war on many fronts, and they have already begun. The culmination will be like World War III, with the outcome highly uncertain and potentially disastrous. Right now, the world is awash in sovereign debt as governments have overpromised welfare benefits. Every country is attempting to debase their currency in order to make their debt load bearable. And this will give you an idea of what's going on with the currencies right now. There is one problem with their approach. If every country is implementing the same strategy, it becomes a race to the bottom. Japan is leading the race and is the most likely candidate to cause a catastrophic collapse in the global financial system. As a matter of fact, I heard an analyst talk about this about 6 months ago. He says, pay attention to Japan. When Japan starts unraveling, that's when it's going to start.
Because they're the weakest link right now.
Yes. The EU and their negative interest rate strategy is crushing the euro, but not addressing the solvency issue at the heart of the bank-centric European mad experiment. I love that.
Oh, and what happened? Part 2 of what we talked about last week?
The Swiss?
Switzerland pulled out of the euro.
Yeah.
What are they doing now? They're investing in gold.
And all the gold's going east, people. It's going to Russia. It's going to China. And right now, some people like the Swiss are getting on a little bit late. There's not going to be any gold left here shortly. So, and they're getting ready for a big event. Mm-hmm. And you find it interesting that our national debt's 18 trillion and the stock market's at 18,000.
Uh-oh.
You know what the 18s are?
No. Oh, 9s.
No. Yeah, they're
nines.
Even worse than that. They're hidden triple sixes.
Well, okay, yeah.
If you're getting into numerology again, folks, I don't believe this stuff.
They do.
They do. Those are triple, and they've been sitting there. We've been sitting at the same stock market and debt now for quite a while. We're at 18. So anyway, the depression engulfing Japan, the recession overwhelming Europe, and the rapidly deflating Chinese malinvestment bubbles have dramatically reduced demand for oil, copper, and iron ore. The collapse in demand for oil has caused the currencies of Russia, Venezuela, we've seen that, Mexico, and Brazil to plunge. Brazil is having a water shortage too, by the way. Argentina, Turkey, and Ukraine risk hyperinflation as their economies are basket cases. The results of rapidly declining currencies is more pain and suffering for the middle and lower classes, and we're seeing that right now here. Mm-hmm. As prices rise for food, energy, and essentials, the peasants get restless. This leads to anger, extremist parties gaining traction, and ultimately revolution. And you're seeing it in Europe right now.
Hold on.
You're seeing it in Europe right now. I think the weed guy is here. I guess I'm going to have to finish this myself. So, since the end of World War II, the U.S. dollar has been the currency in which all world trade has been conducted. The global oil trade has been settled in dollars. It has been settled in dollars. It's called the petrodollar. American economic warfare, aggression against Russia, China, Iran, and other developing countries has pushed them into closer economic cooperation. That's called the BRICS nations. Well, we've talked to you about that too. BRICS stands for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and it's actually South Africa. They're creating their own currency right now. They're getting out of dollars because they've had enough of it. They've had enough of the debt. They've had enough of the criminal activity. The manipulation of the stock market, manipulation of the metals. Yes, the metals too. The COMEX, which controls the metals prices in the world, is basically corrupt. So anyway, The current strength of the dollar is only a reflection of the U.S. being the best-looking horse in the glue factory. I love that term. Basically, we're getting ready to, all the currencies are getting ready to die, but we're the best-looking horse, being led to slaughter. The U.S. economy is the least worst, but will not be decoupling from the global downturn. The movement of physical gold from west to east is a reflection of a shift in power. That's what I've been telling you. All the gold is going east right now. We're stuck on paper. The Russians and the Chinese and in India, they're buying it all. And when all this comes, when all this is all settled, all the dust settles from whatever's coming, the guy with the gold is going to be the guy calling the shots. So, U.S. mega corporations who get half their profits overseas face the double whammy of slowing demand and a stronger dollar. Stronger dollar makes our exports more expensive. And makes imports more expensive to buy. Makes exports more expensive for the other countries. The combination will crush their profits and contribute to the coming stock market crash. When Greece exits the EU, the currency wars may lead to real war in Europe. And Greece is exiting the EU because they're just such a basket case. They're just that's like almost like a third world nation now. And another aspect of this fourth turning is class war. And we see it every day here in the United States. As Warren Buffett admitted in an oligarch momentary lapse into truthiness, he said, "There's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning." Let me say that again. Class warfare. Warren Buffett said this. There's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning. Now this next one, and let's see how much time we got.
About 4 minutes.
Okay, this is really interesting right here, and this talks about the 99% versus the 1%. It says the mean driving the the Wall Street, Occupation Wall Street protests.
Occupy Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street. They called it OWS, and I had to figure out what they were talking about. The mean driving the Occupation Wall Street protests was the 1% versus the 99%. The comparison is misleading. The 1% includes many small business owners, productive professionals, successful physicians, and hardworking entrepreneurs. The true class war is between the 0.1% and the 99.9%. There is a small clique of bankers, billionaires, corporate CEOs, media moguls, politicians, and their acolytes who represent the deep state or invisible government and control the mechanisms of financial markets through their capture of the system. There is absolutely no question they are winning. It's hard not to win when the game is rigged in your favor by your fellow 0.1% cronies. And that's what Warren Buffett was just saying. He's saying, yeah, the rich, there's class warfare, all right, but it's my class, the rich class, that's making war, and we're winning. He admitted we're waging war against you. There's not going to be any middle class.
Pretty much.
So there's absolutely no question they are winning. It's hard not to win when the game is rigged in favor of your fellow 0.1% cronies. The markets are no longer free. They are manipulated and rigged to benefit that 0.1% at everybody else's expense. The wealth of the richest has skyrocketed while the rest has fallen since 2009. Real median household income languishing at 1989 levels proves they have been the losers. The next financial collapse, initiated by the policies designed to benefit the 0.1%, will push class warfare into the streets. Gated communities and doormen will not save the 0.1% from the wrath of their victims. So, and it goes on. It goes on to describe generational war, terrorism, religious war.
Sounds almost like the French Revolution.
Cyber war, civil war.
We're setting ourselves up for.
And then total war. We're just not in hot war right now. Excuse me. But all the chips are falling in place right now.
But I told you about this new show on NBC, Allegiance, which is about basically this couple, middle-aged couple. They have adult children and one that's not an adult. But the woman was a former KGB spy, and she, when they were younger, recruited the husband, who was an American. And now they've been out of it, and now they don't call themselves the KGB anymore. It's the SSR. Different name, same rules. And they want them to recruit their son, who is a CIA analyst. And basically, they want to find out, because he has the abilities to find out what they're up to, which is a plot to destroy the whole infrastructure of the U.S. And one of the things they said at the end of the episode this week was, if you do this, you're going to turn everything that's going on now not into a Cold War, but into a hot war. They use that phrase that you used.
Well, it's true. And before anybody gets on their high horse and says, this is the result of capitalism. Capitalism has been practiced in this country for over 100 years. What we're witnessing right now is fascism. Crony capitalism, call it what you want, is fascism. It's the government and colluding with business to pick winners and losers. See General Motors, see General Electric.
And they're using our money to do it, folks.
Yeah, Jeffrey Immelt.
On every level.
Jeffrey Immelt took all of his business overseas and gets taxed.
Yeah.
Gets to pay no taxes on top of it. Because you know why? He was on Obama's economic commission or whatever.
But other companies get scolded for moving overseas.
That's another thing.
Repatriation of corporations.
Leftists like to lament the fact that all these jobs are going overseas. How come they don't complain about Apple?
True.
All of Apple's in China right now.
Yeah.
And they've got suicide nets so the workers don't kill themselves because they're being worked to death on a pittance. But for some reason, Jobs was their hero because he looked like a hippie and smelled like a hippie.
They don't say anything about BP either until they have an oil spill, and they're based out of Britain.
Yeah. But I guess it's just the businessman that's on the right side.
Anyway, folks, that wraps up another show. Sorry for the interruption. The weed sprayers weren't supposed to be here till between 12 and 4 and got here a little early. Should have known better. Anyway, we'll see you next week. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a good week.
Pay attention and God bless.